It started out like a normal weekday, or at least that's what I thought, but things quickly took a strange turn. It was early April, and rain had been relentless for days. My job is half indoors, half outdoors, which makes rainy days that much worse. By the time my shift ended at 6 p.m, I was soaked and completely drained. I drove the usual 30 minutes home through heavy rain to my house tucked away in a rural part of town. As I pulled into the driveway, now just a stretch of muddy tracks, I noticed something odd. There was another set of tire marks leading down to my house, like someone else had driven there earlier. I assumed it was the mail truck, but when I got to the front door, there were no packages, no mail. From the tracks, it looked like whoever it was simply drove up, made a 3-point turn, and left. Probably just someone who took a wrong turn. I didn't think much of it. I went inside, peeled off my wet work clothes, and headed to the kitchen to throw together something quick for dinner. It was around 7:30 p.m. when I thought I heard a knock. Just one, quiet and barely audible over the rain. I wasn't even sure I heard it. Still, I walked from the living room to the front door to check. When I opened it, the wind and rain hit me in the face like a slap, but there was no one there. I looked around briefly before closing it again, chalking it up to my imagination. I went back to the living room and settled in to watch a show while scrolling on my phone. For a while, nothing happened. At least an hour passed. Then, I got up to use the bathroom, and on the way out, I noticed something weird, a smudge of dirt or mud on the white tile floor. It stood out starkly. I never wear shoes in the house, especially not muddy ones. What's more, the dirt was located right behind the couch, where I wouldn't have even walked. I wiped it up with a rag, still puzzled. It was one of those odd little things you can't explain, but you try not to think too much about. Still, something about it felt off. The kind of thing that plants a seed of unease in your gut. I told myself it was nothing, just paranoia, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I kept glancing over my shoulder, feeling like something was watching me. It was like that unnerving sensation you get after watching a horror movie. With the way my couch was positioned, the entire downstairs of the house was behind me. It was starting to make me too uneasy to sit there. Eventually, I gave in to the feeling and went upstairs to my bedroom. At least up there, I could rest with my back to a wall. I had a small TV, so I continued my night from there. About 20 minutes later, just as I was beginning to relax and forget about the whole thing, I heard something outside my bedroom door. It was a muffled thump, maybe a footstep or something brushing against the wall. I couldn't be sure, but instantly, my comfort vanished. I got out of bed and approached the door, pressed my ear to it, nothing. I stood there for a moment, trying to gather the nerve to open it. Finally I did. The hallway was silent and empty, but I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep unless I checked the rest of the house. Upstairs, the only other room is a spare bedroom I use as a library. As I started walking toward it, something happened that made my heart stop. The TV downstairs turned on, blasting the show I had been watching earlier at full volume. Fear jolted through me. I sprinted down the hallway and flew down the stairs. The floor was completely dark except for the glow of the TV flickering on the walls. I turned the corner into the living room, unsure of what I'd find, but no one was there. I slowly approached the TV, scanning every shadow, then turned it off manually. Was it just a glitch, or was something really happening? All the strange little things from earlier came rushing back to me. I grabbed a kitchen knife and started checking every room, every corner, trying to convince myself it was all just a string of coincidences. Looking back, I should have called the police, but in the moment it didn't seem like it would help much. They wouldn't arrive for at least 10 or 15 minutes anyway. I cleared the first floor. Everything seemed normal. I returned upstairs, now mostly convinced I'd scared myself over nothing. I walked to the spare room and opened the door slowly. It looked the same as always, until I noticed something on the floor by the closet. It was the TV remote, for the TV downstairs. All the blood drained from my face. I backed away from the room, turned, and bolted downstairs and out of the house, calling the police as I did. When they arrived, they confirmed my worst fear. Someone had been in the house. A downstairs window lock was broken. They think the person showed up earlier while I was still at work, probably the car I saw the tracks from. Maybe they knocked to see if I was home, and when no one answered, they left, only to come back and break in. They were in my house the whole time, lurking, watching. When I went upstairs, they must have grabbed the remote and turned on the TV on purpose, to distract me while I walked toward the room they were hiding in. It gave them the chance to quietly slip out. What's even worse is that nothing was stolen, no clear signs of what they were after, just silence and the terrifying realization that someone had been there the entire time. If anything else happens, I just hope I'll still be around to tell you about it. This happened about 4 years ago, but I still think about it sometimes. It was one of those nights when the rain soaks through your bones and the thunder makes the windows rattle. I was working as an Uber driver back then, and nights like that were usually slow. Most people preferred to stay in rather than risk going out in a storm. Still, I stayed out. Even if I only got 1 or 2 rides, it was money I wouldn't have made otherwise. Sometimes I'd just drive around listening to music or park in an empty lot, watching videos and waiting. The long hours didn't bother me. There was a kind of peace in the quiet. That night felt no different at first. I was parked behind a grocery store, rain hammering the roof like it wanted in. Thunder rolled steadily, and the lightning was so bright it lit up the car like a strobe. An hour passed without a single request. Eventually I got hungry, so I drove to a fast food place, picked something up, and returned to the same lot to eat. Just as I was finishing, my phone buzzed, a ride request. I was surprised. No one had been out all night. I checked the app and saw the pickup was about 25 minutes away, with the drop-off point another 20 beyond that. Long-distance requests like this usually mean you're the only driver online nearby. Most others sign off in bad weather. I figured I might as well accept. It was something to do. I followed the GPS, heading deeper into unfamiliar territory. The storm made everything feel eerier. No other cars, no signs of life. Just fields and forests lining both sides of the road. After about 35 minutes, I arrived at the pin's location, an intersection of 2 rural roads. No houses, no lights, just dark trees and open land. I checked the app again. It said I'd arrived, but nobody was there. I turned on my high beams and looked around. Nothing. Not a single person or structure. It felt abandoned. I reached for my phone to message the rider when movement caught my eye in the side mirror. Someone was approaching the car from behind, heading for the back passenger side door. I instinctively locked the doors, but not fast enough. The man opened the door and climbed in, drenched from head to toe. I had no idea where he came from. There were no paths or driveways. It was as if he'd walked out of the woods. He looked off. That's the only way I can describe it. His face was tense, his eyes strange, angry maybe, or just cold. I asked, "Did you order the Uber?" He didn't answer. Instead, he said my first name. That was confirmation enough, though it didn't ease my nerves. I started driving. He sat in the middle of the back seat. Unusual. Most riders sit to one side, but he stared straight ahead, occasionally glancing around like he was checking for something. The way he carried himself, the way he looked, it all felt wrong. I couldn't shake the unease crawling up my spine. I tried to make small talk. "So, what brings you out here tonight?" He met my eyes in the mirror for a moment, then looked away without a word. His silence felt like a warning. The ride dragged on, the air in the car growing heavier by the minute. I kept glancing at him through the rearview mirror. His expression never changed. Tight jaw, sharp eyes. Every time I looked forward, I felt vulnerable, like I shouldn't take my eyes off him. Then, out of nowhere, he spoke. "Drop me off here." I looked around. We were in the middle of nowhere. Trees, fog, nothing else. "Are you sure?" I asked. "Drop me off here," he repeated, sharper this time. I didn't argue. I pulled over, tires crunching against gravel. As he reached for the door handle, I saw him glance at my phone on the center console. The Uber app was still open. He froze. Then, slowly, he pulled out his own phone and stared at it. That's when I realized. He was thinking about the digital trail. The ride was logged. My name, the time, the route, his info. If he planned to do anything, he now knew it wouldn't go unnoticed. Trying to ease the tension, I said, "Hey, don't worry. I'll cancel the ride so you don't get charged." I said it like it was no big deal, hoping he'd assume cancelling would wipe the data. He stared at me, eyes narrowing. Then, without a word, he got out. The rain swallowed him in seconds. I didn't hesitate. I drove off fast, heart pounding. I didn't dare look back. All I could think about was the way he stared at me in the mirror. I reported the encounter to Uber and the police. There wasn't any real crime, but something about it felt deeply wrong. I described the location, his appearance, his strange behavior. But there wasn't much to go on. A few days passed. Then I got a call from the authorities. Someone had gone missing that same night. They were last seen near the forest that bordered the road where I picked up that man. The police wanted every detail I could remember. I told them everything. Search parties went out, but the storm had erased any trace. No footprints, no evidence. I knew Zrenia, the man I picked up. He was never identified. He never used the app again. It was like he disappeared into thin air. To this day, I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't locked the doors, if I hadn't noticed him looking at the app, if I'd pushed him with more questions. I'll never know what he was planning, but I'm sure of one thing. I'm lucky I didn't vanish too. This happened just a few months ago. I work overnight shifts at a warehouse, so I'm used to sleeping during the day and staying awake from around 6 p.m. to 10 a.m., even on my days off. It helps keep my body on a routine. One night, I got home around 4:15 a.m. The streets were silent. As I pulled up to my house, I noticed a car parked right next to my driveway. It immediately caught my attention. It was an old black sedan, beat up with heavy window tinting, no lights, engine off. I slowed down as I passed it, but I couldn't see inside at all. In my neighborhood, houses are spaced out, and there's always plenty of room to park. Whoever owned that car had no reason to be parked that close to my driveway unless they were coming to my house, but no one had. I parked in my garage, took another look, then went inside. A little weird, but maybe it was nothing. I figured it'd be gone by morning. About an hour later, I peeked out the window. The car was gone. The next day, everything felt normal. I slept, got ready for work, and left that evening. But when I came home, there it was again. That same car, same spot. I slowed down and studied it more carefully. Again, no lights. I parked, then walked to the end of the driveway to get a closer look. As I approached, I thought I saw movement, like someone ducked. It was faint, could have been a shadow. I stood there, staring. Nothing else. I backed off, but before I went inside, I snapped a photo of the license plate, just in case. 20 minutes later, I looked outside again. The car was gone. The third night, I took a walk in the evening. The car wasn't there when I left, but when I returned, it was, parked exactly where it had been the nights before. That's when I knew this wasn't random. I walked right up to it, tried to peer in through the tint. The car looked empty, but the windows were too dark to be sure. I didn't want to touch it or provoke anything, so I turned and went inside. A few minutes later, I got a notification. Motion detected on one of my home security cameras. I have several, including one in the hallway outside my bedroom. They don't trigger unless there's real movement. I opened the app and watched the clip. It was mostly still, until the last second. That's when I saw it. Just the edge of a figure, a shoulder and part of a head, in my upstairs hallway. Inside the house, I froze. I was in that same room when the alert came through. The house was dead silent, but something felt wrong. I couldn't hear anything, but I felt it. Someone was in there with me. I backed slowly into the hallway. Just then, I heard footsteps behind me, heavy, rushing. I didn't look back. I bolted, ran down the stairs, flung the front door open, and sprinted toward the woods behind my house. Branches slapped my arms as I pushed deeper into the trees. I didn't stop until I was far enough that I couldn't see my house anymore. That's where I called 911. When the police arrived, the car was gone again, but I had the license plate photo, and that gave them something to work with. They found the guy a few hours later. He was parked in a different neighborhood when they pulled him over. Inside the car, they found gloves, duct tape, zip ties, and a knife. He looked rough, mid-20s, scruffy, sunken eyes, a wild stare. When they searched his phone, they found photos of my house, dozens of them. Some through the windows, a few of me inside, sitting on the couch, eating at the table, reading. He also kept notes, a detailed log of my schedule, when I left for work, when I got home, how long I spent in each room. He'd been watching me for weeks. The worst part? No signs of forced entry. Nothing broken. He somehow got in without me knowing. Maybe through an unlocked window. Maybe while I took out the trash. I'll never know. The motion camera was pure luck. He must have stepped into view without realizing it, but it means he was close. Probably just feet from me. He could have been in the house before that too, watching me sleep, standing just out of sight. That's what keeps me up at night. He's in jail now, facing multiple charges. I've upgraded my locks, added more cameras, and got a dog. It helps, but the fear's still there. Because if I hadn't seen that car, if I hadn't checked the footage, if I had turned around when I heard the footsteps, I might not be here to tell this story.